A few years ago, every fall, my wife and I would lead a group of college students to a retreat in the Poconos. Anybody like the Poconos? And one year, I brought my buddy with me and his wife and 3 kids. And we pulled into this small town in the Poconos, and one of the first things you saw on the right was this beautiful little candy shop. And so I said to the boys that were with me, "Boys, let's go get some candy." Now, if you've ever taken kids into a candy shop, I'm sorry guys, this isn't working here. There we go. Usually what you want to do is give them some parameters. But for some reason, this day, I was feeling very generous. So I said to the boys, "Everybody get whatever you want." 5 boys, 9 years at that time and younger. And this candy shop had it figured out real well. They had buckets at the beginning that you could fill, but these buckets were not little buckets. You know what I'm saying? They were like beach sand castle buckets. And the boys walked around, and I figured, how much can, gumdrops be? But my kids are smart. Real smart. My buddy's kids were smart too, and they realized you could get more than just gumdrops. You could fit a lot of really nice candy bars in a bucket as well. And 10, maybe 15 minutes later, we go to the register, and $94 worth of candy later. I had 5 lifelong friends, but I had to sit down with my wife and explain why our grocery bill was a little out of whack that month. You put a kid in a candy shop with no boundaries, good luck. What's your candy shop? What's that thing? What's that possession? What's that material object out there that you love and want? And if you were given free rein, you'd go to town. Some of us adults, or at least most of us, are not as tempted with candy. But maybe for you, it's going to Zillow.com. You know what that is? It's the real estate website. And you start looking at houses, and you start thinking, if I didn't live in Staten Island, you know what I could get for a house in Albuquerque? The real estate agents are laughing in the room. Or whatever it is for you. Perhaps you're a collector of something, and you get the monthly subscription for whatever magazine that is, and you look at it and you think, oh, wouldn't this be something? Or maybe you like golf, and each year the new hot list of the best drivers come out, and you think, oh man, if I only had $500, then I would hit my drive straight and not, always this way. For all of us, there are these temptations out there. And the world is built in many ways on materialism and consumerism. You can't watch a TV show without each commercial break, if you still watch commercials, and don't fast forward, telling you all the new, shiniest, and best things you need to be happy. And for kids, the new video game system comes out, and then what happens a year later? The new one comes out. And all of a sudden, you own something that's like 6 months old. Who wants a 6-month-old video game system? Or for me, I really like iPhones. Forgive me if you're a Google person. And you update your iPhone, and then the new one comes out, and you're thinking, oh, my pictures will be that much sharper. The temptations, oftentimes, especially in our setting in the world, is to look for and want to consume the material things of this world. And I believe that the way we view money and possessions and the material things of this world are like a window into our hearts. They reveal for us the things that we really prioritize, the things that we really value, the things that we think will really bring greatest joy. And in God's word, in Proverbs, as we continue our look in this series, we're going to see that the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about wealth and about material things. But as the wisdom of this proverb, as the writers come to us, it challenges us to look at these things not for the hope and the sustenance that they will bring, but that in looking to them through the lens of following after the Lord, that the priorities of our heart can be shifted and shaped to the things that God prioritizes. Are you with me? That having the latest and greatest, having a tub full of candy is not what gives ultimate joy, but that God's priorities do. You know, there's a proverb that start off with that I want you to think about as we begin to look into this together. Proverbs 30 verses 7 and 9 tells us the temptations of too much and not enough. It says this, 2 things I ask of you, deny them not to me before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lying, number 1. Number 2, give me neither poverty nor riches. Hold up. How many of you this week prayed, God, don't give me riches? How many of you checked your tax returns for 2019 and 2020 and said, dear Lord, I'm happy I don't qualify for the stimulus this week? Give me neither poverty nor riches. And look at the temptations of each. Feed me with the food that is needful, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of God. Do you see the wisdom in this proverb? Lord, don't give me riches to the point that I forget who you are. Lord, don't give me riches to the point that I forget to honor you, that I forget your priorities. And Lord, don't make me so in want that I curse your name. There's temptations on either end. He says here what we see Jesus later on repeat in a different way, give us this day our daily bread. Lord, meet my need for the day. You see, our perspective on money and possessions reveals the priorities of our hearts. That's the big idea for today. That's what we're going to see in the several Proverbs that we look at together. Our perspective on money and possessions reveals the priorities of our heart. And whether you're here this morning and you have a little, if you're here this morning and you have enough, or if you're here this morning and you have a lot, God wants our heart. So today, let's look at a few of the priorities that God lays out for us. And then we'll go through 4 questions I want you to think through this week as you process these priorities in your own life. The first, Proverbs 15:16. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Once again, how many of you prayed this week, Lord, don't give me great treasure? This proverb is saying that one of God's priorities for us as we look through the management of money and the material possessions in our life is this: do I desire to live in fear of God more than I want treasures from God? The fear of the Lord. We talked about this theme. It's a key theme for understanding all of the Proverbs. It's this idea of, God, I want to live in awe and reverence of you. That every day when I wake up and I step out of my bed and as I get prepared to go to work and as I go to meet my friends and as I spend time in the community, that, Lord, everything I want to do is in the fear of you, in awe and reverence of you. That's what it means to be in the fear of God. Do I prioritize the fear of the Lord in my life? Honoring him with how I spend my time, my money, and my resources more than I want the treasures of this world. Do you fear the Lord like this? Oftentimes the Lord sometimes takes away the things that we put our hope and our confidence in to the point where we have only Him to look to. And it's in those moments, unfortunately, sometimes it takes us to go to those hard moments before we recognize the wonderful beauty and invitation of fearing the Lord. I was sharing in the first service, my wife and I, when we first got married, we lived in Dallas, Texas together. We were both paying and putting ourselves through grad school together down in the great state of Texas. And we both had jobs, and we both lost our jobs the same day. I won't tell you all the stories how, but it was an interesting day. So I remember having to tell my wife I lost my job, and her getting ready to tell me that she lost her job. And we'd been married, 6 months, a year, I think, at this point. And I remember we were both looking at each other, and we said, well, I lost my job. Oh, wait, what? Then we thought about the grad school bills we had. And then we thought about all the other expenses. And I remember looking in our bank account that day, which was a bad move. It was just a couple $100. And I remember thinking, things don't add up. And I wish I could tell you in that moment, I thought to myself, thank God. We still get to fear the Lord in this moment. Thank God we still have the opportunity to know and follow. No, I'll tell you what I did. Mike had a little hissy fit, a little woe is Mike party. You know what happened? Literally within hours, I got a job. Literally within hours, the Lord started to open up opportunities. Literally, within a day, all the things that we were so worried about were fixed in a moment. I'm not saying the Lord always works that quickly, but I thank God He did in that moment. And I wish I could say that it came out of a great faith and trust in Him, but it was really Him just blessing me when I was being silly and stupid. But what a missed opportunity. God gives us the opportunity, whether we have a little, whether we have enough, or whether we have a lot, to prioritize fearing the Lord. Write that down this week. Priority number 1, God, I want to fear you. I want to obey you. I want to live in reverence and awe of you. Another priority. He says this, better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. That God, it is better to have a little in my pocket and to know that I am seeking after you in righteousness in my life. That I'm seeking after you in holiness in my life. Than to have a lot and be a part of things that hurt myself and hurt others. Some of us, think the ends, will justify the means, and no matter how I make it, if it hurts others along the way, so be it. I use that then to, take care of myself and others that are close to me. This Proverbs reminds us that it is better to have a little if we're living a life of righteousness in our pursuit than to have a lot that harms other people along the way. This is God's priority. Righteousness, holiness like this, trusting and loving Him like this. How many of us wake up each day and think, Lord, what an opportunity for righteousness. How many of us on payday, whenever your payday is, think, an opportunity for me to care for and love and seek to be a person of righteousness with how I manage these resources. How many of us in our homes and with our cars and with those other things that God has entrusted to our care think, Lord, how can I intentionally use these things not just for my own comfort, not just for my own ease, to be a person of righteousness. Another one similar to this is better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than a rich man who is crooked in his ways. A similar way of saying it. A priority that you could have, whether you have a little or a lot, is a person of integrity. God, thank you that no matter if I lose it all, I could still seek integrity in my life. This is God's priority. This is what we want to instill in the life of our kids. As we're encouraging them and training them and investing in them, parents, we want to be more excited about what they are doing and growing in integrity and righteousness in their life than in what college they're getting into or in what career we think will pad their pockets at some point down the road. Our first prayer for them, our first discipleship pattern for them is that they might be a people that seek after righteousness and integrity in their life. Is that your prayer for your kids, your grandkids? That we might be people that value this integrity. That we might be people that are true. When I went away to college, my parents gave me this little plaque. And the plaque said this: integrity. Who you are when no one else but God is watching. I thought that was kind of ominous for an 18-year-old to have as a gift. I was like, whoa, what are you saying, Mom? What are you saying? But I remember I put this plaque up on my desk every dorm that I lived in all the way through grad school as a reminder. That's what God desires. That who I am when no one else but God is watching, that I might seek after that in my life. That I might value that more than a grade or a GPA or a career or whatever it might be. Integrity, it's this idea that what God in His created order, what He has set in order, you could trust and believe it because what He says, He comes through with. I often think of the illustration of like a banana. I think I've shared it before. You go shopping in the supermarket and you go to buy bananas. You don't actually buy a banana. You buy a peel. Are you with me? And you believe the integrity of God that when you peel it open, what's inside? A banana. Or you go shopping here in the summer, and I love going shopping for fruit in the summer, and you go to the grocery store and you pick up a nice watermelon for a backyard barbecue. Are you ready for some backyard barbecues? Just ready to be outside, right? And you pick up that big old watermelon. And how do you tell if the watermelon is good? It sounds what? Hollow. Think of it. You knock on it. It sounds like nothing is in it. It must be good. Why? Because the watermelon has integrity. And when you cut it open, the fruit is there. And God tells us our priorities, our heart's priorities is not riches alone. It's integrity like this. That who we are on the inside matches with who we portray on the outside. You can value integrity this week, even if you didn't qualify for a stimulus check. You could value righteousness this week. You could value the fear of God. And when you do, guess what? God's priorities are your priorities. Better is dinner of herbs where love is than a fattened ox and hatred. I love this priority. This is what I call the priority of relationship. That you could value each other, other people, more than you just value excess. He says it's better to have a dinner of herbs. I mean, does that sound satisfying? It's better sitting around the table and getting, a little oregano and a little, than to be sitting with a fattened ox and there's hatred. You see what God is saying? It's better for there to be love and relationships with those you sit across the table with, even if you don't got much at all to eat, than to be invited to a feast and everybody's just talking about each other at the table. Have you ever been at one of those? You're at a big shindig and the whole time you're thinking, And then what do you do the whole way home for dessert? You talk about the person, can't believe so-and-so. I remember early on, once again, when we were first married, my wife, God bless her, I think she got a deal at the supermarket on chicken. We didn't have a lot of money. And she was still learning to cook for us all. And when you're first married men, you eat whatever comes. Are you with me? And I remember we didn't even have a kitchen table yet. We didn't even buy a kitchen table yet. And in the middle of our little apartment, we lived in the seminary housing. She put a bed sheet actually on the ground as like a picnic. Okay, that's all. And I came home and on the ground, she didn't know how much to make or not. She made the whole $2.99 whatever deal we got of some type of chicken dish. And one side, and I walked in the house. She's like, "This is all I made." And I remember sitting on the ground on top of that blanket, eating this chicken, which was pretty good. And I forget what the side was. But you know what? We were newlyweds, and we did not care. Why? There was love in the room. It's better to have a pound of okay cooked chicken where love is than a feast where there's hatred. Some of us need to start valuing relationships in our life a little bit more. Some of us need to not take for granted our spouses. Some of us need to be a person of peace in our home and love on our kids a little bit more around the table. Some of us need to confess some of those ways that we have caused relationships in our life to drift apart. Because it's better to have a dinner of oregano with people you love than a fattened calf and there be hatred in the midst. Do you see God's priority here? God's priority, whether you have a little, whether you have enough, whether you have a lot, is to be a person of love in your relationships. You could prioritize that this week, even if it's McDonald's for dinner. Although someone told me that is expensive, that's true. Lastly here, and then we're going to go through a few questions. Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. Whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he shares his bread with the poor. A way that we are to view our possessions, our money, that reveals the priority of our heart is that are we looking at these things that God has entrusted into our hands as an opportunity to show generosity and love towards other people? To insult the poor man, it's saying it's to insult the maker. In other words, this is another individual that's been made in the image of God. And to say, well, they made their choices, that's why they are the way they are, that's why they have to deal with the way they have to deal with things, that is antithetical to the heart of God and the priority of the Lord in our life. God says, be a person of generosity to the needy. Who are those people in your life that God continues to bring into your life who continue to have needs? You know, those individuals that you think, well, listen, I helped them enough now, okay? And I understand there's a point where helping hurts, and I get it, but I doubt many of us have gotten to that point with most people. God gives us opportunities to be generous. One of God's priorities with our money and our possessions is to use them in generous ways to help and care for those in greatest need. I love this metaphor in verse 9 of chapter 22. Whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed. He shares his bread with the poor. I love this. Whoever has this kind of view, this kind of mindset, this kind of vision that they just see need and think, I want to bring bounty to this situation. You know people like this? Generous people that when they see situations around them, when they see people in hurt, and they're thinking, they have a bountiful eye, and they think, and it doesn't matter how much you have. They can think, man, I got $10. I need $5 to make it through the week. And this person only needs $2. God. Here's the 2, here's the 3, here's the 4. I want to see them blessed. To be a person that has a bountiful eye. I love that metaphor. What a way to live. Lord, when I see the needs of those around you, may I think, God, not, well, what are the decisions they made that got them to that point? Or, hey, Lord, I'd like a little bit more in my bank account before I bless other people. Or to be a person of generosity. This is God's priorities. Our money and our possessions reveals the priorities of our hearts as one of your priorities to be a person of generosity like our God is toward us. Fear of the Lord, righteousness, integrity, loving relationships, generosity. These are just some of the priorities that Proverbs talks about that we could start valuing right now, whether we have a little, whether we have enough, or whether we have a lot. I want to give you several questions here as we start thinking through how to apply this in our life. How do we know whether or not our heart is more interested in the things for ourselves and comforts for ourselves as opposed to the priorities of God? I want to go through these with you. The first one, when others prosper, does my heart rejoice or turn to jealousy? When you see someone else prospering, does your heart rejoice for them or become jealous? Now listen, all of us have had moments like this, haven't we? Where we see God blessing someone else and we think, why not me, God? When we see God materially or financially or maybe even in other ways, someone else's children seem to be doing better than yours are currently, or someone else's retirement date is earlier than mine. Like, Lord, I've worked harder than them, If our heart could be one that begins to rejoice to see God's blessing in the life of other people, you know what we have done? We've begun to prioritize righteousness and integrity and love and the fear of God and relationships and generosity. Some of the most generous people I know have the least that you would think about in the realm of the worldly riches, but yet are so happy for other people. So happy for other people. I could tell you, and I'm honest here now, there's like a handful of people I know who operate in that first one like this, that just rejoice. Be a person like this. Be a person that is so thankful for the things that God has given you. When you see God rejoice others, even if you wish you had a little bit more, that you're happy for them. Second, when others are in need, do I judge or do I come to their aid? When I see others struggling, do I think, well, they had it coming? Should have listened to me. Poor choices. They deserve the ruin they're experiencing. Or do you think, Lord, you may not call me to meet every need that they're going through, but Lord, how could I come to their aid in some small way? How could I be generous towards them? How could I, knowing that Jesus, in his generosity towards me, has given me of himself, have given me forgiveness, I could offer it to others. I could be generous towards others. Start asking yourself this week, when you see family and friends prospering, or when you see those you know struggling, how might I respond that demonstrates I want to be a person of wisdom in how I manage the things that God has placed into my care? Okay, lastly, these more personal questions now. When I prosper, do I reevaluate or accumulate? Okay, here's what I mean by that. Let's say you're expecting a stimulus check this week, okay? Some of us have already figured out how we're going to spend that stimulus check. Some of us have already figured out, oh, goody, goody, goody. When God blesses us, is our first thought, how might I accumulate more? How might I give into the machine of consumerism and materialism more in my life and in my relationships in our society? Or, Lord, now may I use this blessing. May I use this bonus at work. May I use this unexpected raise. May I use this gift that you've given me from a family member. May I use whatever it might be. Lord, how may I use this? How may I reevaluate it so that I might invest and care for and be generous to those around me and those far away? Isn't that a radical view? Lord, when you bless me, how can I think about being generous with what you have placed into my care? And then lastly, when I'm in need, do I still desire or long for those things that cost nothing? When you go through those seasons in your life when you're struggling, when it's hard to make ends meet, when you go through those seasons in life where those investments that you hoped would pan out didn't, and you got 3 more years of work before you can retire, Do I still value and desire those things that don't cost a dime? Do I still desire loving relationships? Do I still long to be a person of integrity? Do I still value, Lord, thank you for the chance to still be a person of holiness, even though my bank account is full of holes right now, That God has always given us the opportunity, no matter whether we're in a season of more or less, to be a person that desires the things that cost nothing. And when we do so, our perspective and our money and possessions reveals that our priority of our hearts are after Him in our life. Closing verse here, and this is Jesus' words. He says in Matthew 6, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And what is the greatest treasure we have been given? It is to know and follow Jesus. Amen? Is my greatest joy and treasure to know and follow Him, no matter in the seasons when I have a little or a lot. Because the things we accumulate on this earth don't come with us to the next. Are you with me? Our relationship with Jesus does, and those that we lead to Him. And so whatever God has placed in your care to steward, a little, enough, or a lot, be a person that seeks after righteousness. Be a person that seeks after integrity and the fear of God. Value relationships more than possessions. And be a person with a bountiful eye. God, how might I bless and care for others? Because when we do so, we are saying, God, I want my heart to be after the things that truly matter. And God, I want my heart to treasure you and to treasure people and to care for others and to care about the gospel being gone out and to care about people seeing and experiencing justice and love and truth in their life. And when we do, our money no longer becomes a burden, it becomes a beautiful stewardship. And when we give like this, you can't outgive God. You see how God always meets our needs when we trust Him with what He has given to our care. Are you with me? So, what big old box of candy are you trying to fill? Put it aside. Treasure the Jesus. Treasure the Lord. And watch Him bless in return.